Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Joined today by both John Cummiskey and Toby Sowery from the newly named HMD Racing. I'll start with John. I saw your name pop up in the announcement a couple weeks ago about the HMD expansion into all levels of the road to Indy for 2020. How did you first become involved with HMD, and when was it?
So it was the just before the Mid-Ohio weekend. They came to me and needed some help. So the team came to my shop. The Indy Lights team came to my shop right after the Mid-Ohio race, the Monday after the Mid-Ohio race, and we started in. And then we also did the rebrand to HMD because of Henry Malukas, the owner's trucking company, HMD Trucking. So really, we felt that we wanted to expand and promote his brand, and I just felt it was a good fit. So myself and the other Henry. So we went with that. So we needed to do something, so that was a logical step to go to.
This question's actually for both of you. How did you first get into racing?
Start with him.
I just started as a bit of a hobby. I think my first time karting was on holiday, and with your dad, a bit of petrol head, he's like, yeah, let's go and have a go at this. So for as long as I can really remember, I've been around motorsports, but I didn't start until, say, later compared to the drivers these days, at 3 or 4, they're in a kart. But for me, I really started properly when I was about 8. But yeah, it was just a bit of fun, just club racing, and then it's spiraled into this messy state.
I was a airplane mechanic in north of Chicago, and I had been a Penske fan since I was a kid, mostly Rick Mears when he started, and my dad was a Thompson Eva fan because his name's Tom, so we were in competition against each other for a while there. And I would go to Milwaukee, Elkhart Lake, and bug the Penske people about a job for a few years, and Derek Walker was then the team manager, kind of got, I think, upset with me in the end, threw a shirt at me, and told me to go polish wheels. And that was my first job in racing was Penske racing.
So, you've been, almost in this sport for about 30 years. Worked with some really successful teams. Penske, of course, Andretti Green, among others. What do you take from the successes you guys had with those teams? What do you bring from that to this organization?
Well, I just think overall experience. Obviously Penske and then Team Green, which turned into Andretti Green, Andretti. Newman Haas, Ganassi. I started Dragon, which was, of course, Roger's son. You take the good parts of all of those that you see, and you try to put all that together. And, obviously very different organizations in their own right, but all quite successful at different times of, overall, yes, but at different times, too. So, just based off of experience of what you've seen works and what doesn't.
All right, my next question here is for Toby. You made a few USF starts 2 years ago, a couple Indy Pro last year. Jumping into a full season this year, you've got one win and you're 4th in points, which is pretty remarkable. What do you attribute that success to this year?
The team around me. Each time we've come out, it's been for a bit of fun, including St. Petersburg at the start of this season. But luckily, I've had a good platform to put a performance in each time. And I think especially the second half of the season, having the rebrand, John coming in, bringing all his expertise as well, it's allowed me to have the platform to achieve these results and perform properly. So, it's a massive team effort. It's not just me jumping in the car and outperforming, it's everyone behind me as well.
So how are you feeling going into this weekend?
I'm on two sides of the fence. I think yesterday we had potential to do better, but the red flag kind of cost us in a manner, but also saved our skins a little bit with timing. So I'm feeling positive for the race. I think, quality today was a little bit sloppy from my behalf, but the pace is in the car, and we just got to really push and utilise every last ounce of it. So I'm feeling quite positive. Starting on the front row, I've got less to lose than the drivers around me, so get my shoulders out a little bit.
You've driven quite a few great road courses so far this season. Where do you put Laguna in that list?
Right at the top. It reminds me of some English circuits, you know, very unforgiving, quite tight and technical, and there's really no room for error. So I enjoy it. The fact that you would get punished if you did make a mistake, so it's always a challenge. You've always got to maximise what you do in car. You can't make any slip-ups. And you know, to drive a track with this much undulation and history, it's quite cool. It's surreal doing the first laps knowing that you're driving at Laguna Seca, so I really enjoy this place.
I'm going to go back to John here. You mentioned Penske. I know you and I have talked before. You were part of the secret Penske engine in 1994 and everything that went into that. What was that like being part of such a, an amazing project? I know if you haven't read the book, The Beast, it details it a lot. It's a great book, but what was it like from your point of view to be part of such an extensive project?
It was good, but we really didn't understand what it was until, to be honest, that book came out, because we were so busy with your own part of it. You never had time to kind of discuss it with anybody else. And then it was over, and it was business as usual. We flipped everything and went right to Milwaukee, different engine in the same cars. And it was kind of, then of course they banned that engine, so it just went away. And it was business as usual. So when Jade he reached out to me when he was going to write the book, and my biggest thing, which it was an honor to contribute to it, but the biggest thing was trying to connect him with all the other guys that were involved with it. So then when he was starting to send me his rough drafts, it was cool to read because I didn't know other people's version. And then you started to piece it together of, oh, that's why that was happening. So it was fun for all of us because we had to get together a few years after that when Carl Kahnhofer wrote his book at the Speedway, and we all got to sit down and talk about that, and it's tough to get us all together anymore in one place. So yeah, it was you didn't really understand what you were in the middle of until it was over.
One of the crazier parts of that whole sequence was the tests in Nazareth when there were 6-foot snowbanks around the track. What was it like testing when it's probably, barely above freezing that day?
Yeah, well, it was very cold, obviously. We probably weren't well prepared for that. Paul was in a snowmobile suit, but he couldn't put anything more on his feet. So we had a heat gun, not a hair dryer, but actually a heat gun that we'd pop the front hatch and stick that in the foot box to warm his feet back up because he would lose the feeling, which is why we would have to stop. And then while he was out running, we would actually grab the skid plates, which are the bottom plates of the car, and we would use those as a sled and go down the hill because we were bored. And you had to stay warm. We didn't have heat in the trucks like they do now, so a bit spoiled. I wish we would have had a truck like this.
So obviously that's an insane story. Is that the most insane story you've been a part of?
Well, there's been probably a few we can't talk about, so I would say no. I mean, Penske's, there's been stories even before I was there where, a street car ended up in a swimming pool or something, but at a hotel. But, it's just kind of, so silly things happen throughout the course of different places, right? We'd be really cold and we'd cut the top off of one of the fuel drums, and because it was methanol alcohol, you just light the whole thing on fire to stay warm. So, just silly stuff like that. So
another thing you were part of was the Ayrton Senna test in '93. When you look back at it, and especially because we lost him so soon after that, when you look back at those couple days, what do you remember? What sticks out?
Well, so we were in Phoenix to do multiple different things. We were doing a Marlboro photo shoot, which we did every year. So we were bouncing back and forth between PIR, the Phoenix International Raceway, and Firebird. And I was bouncing in between that also. So I just remember I was there when he arrived at Firebird. He came in a Lincoln Town car, much to everybody. I think everybody said he ended up with people, but he had nobody with him. And he was extremely shy, which I think came across as being arrogant to some people. And then I stayed I think when he did his first 10 laps or something, then we had to leave, unfortunately. But, you know, incredibly quick, very gracious, obviously super talented. But I think what people don't understand about Ayrton was that he was one of the first ones to the racetrack and always one of the last ones. So like Charlie Kimball's dad, who was his engineer at one point, is a great guy to talk to about Ayrton. So when we talk about that, it's fun. And so, yeah, it was super cool. I mean, it was just real shame because of what could have been. And then I remember right where I was at when I heard about him, you know, being killed. So obviously, you know, one of the greatest racers in history, right?
Back to Toby. Your beginning of the season was kind of like a weekend by weekend basis. Is it difficult to, you know, kind of race like that without knowing, hey, I don't know if I have anything to fall back on after this weekend?
I think there's two sides to that as well. Obviously, there's the no pressure side of it, where if your results aren't that good, then it's not the end of the world. You know, you don't have a championship to really contend for. But then again, you have the pressure of, if I do well, I've got a good chance of coming back. So I think they balance each other out. You know, you're there to do the best result no matter what. If you're there the next weekend, it doesn't matter. You still go out to achieve wins, podiums, fastest laps, poles. So you look at it both sides, but I don't think it made too much of a difference from my side about how I performed.
What's been your favorite track to race at this year?
The one that will stick in my head is probably the Freedom 100. Just, you know, from someone from Europe, we don't do ovals, so to go and jump in at almost the deepest end you can get, apart from the Indy 500, it was an experience, and I really enjoyed it. But you know, street courses as well. I really liked St. Petersburg. You know, again, it was the first street course, so there's a lot of fun memories from this year. Everything's been completely new, so I don't think one particularly stands out except for the Freedom. They've all been very, very enjoyable from my side.
Coming from Europe, you know, like you said, you don't race on ovals, and it's kind of an acquired taste. Some of the guys who have come over really like it, and some didn't. Were you kind of surprised when you first started turning your first laps on an oval that you kind of enjoyed it?
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical. You know, you hear, obviously in Europe they don't do it for certain reasons, and you hear about all the crashes, all the events that do happen on ovals, and you kind of get into that false sense of fear, if you like. But, you know, after the first two laps, it was one of the most enjoyable first days of something new I'd had in a race car. The cambers, the speeds, the offsets, it was completely new, and kind of like a refresher of what motorsports can be. So I loved it. I'm surprised that more people don't look at it. I think they get, like what happened to me, fooled into the false sense of danger. But, you know, if you use your head, don't drive like an idiot, and I think they can be perfectly safe.
So I have to ask, Rich Energy, we all know the ridiculous behind it, which has seemed to return to social media, I think this week. Yeah. From your point of view, it's been pretty calm with Rich Energy, which I guess you're very happy about. But do you have any thoughts about the interesting social media strategy behind Rich Energy?
You can either call him a genius or an idiot, I guess. I don't know. I'm not in control of that, so I've stepped away from it as much as possible, not to be caught up in it. You know, do my part, support the company where they've asked me to, not overstep my limits. But you know, it's kind of, will it affect me at certain points? You know, you do kind of start to hesitate about what you can say and do with the stickers on your car. But you know, I've tried to keep out of the limelight with all the press and just do my own thing.
I hope everybody enjoyed the race car in the background. That's part of the fun of doing these interviews at the track here. I'll wrap it up with one final question here for you, and then maybe one more for John when he walks back over. 2019 has been pretty successful. Looking forward to 2020, do you have, you know, is your goal to at least stay in Indy Lights?
Yeah, I'd like to make a return. I feel like there's a little bit of unfinished business at certain places. You know, starting to get a proper structure over here has been nice on my side. So I would like to come back, but with the full intention of taking the championship. I wouldn't come here for another year, just second or third. It would be completely for the championship if we did return.
I got one more for John, and then we'll wrap it up, guys. Thanks very much for some time today. You also have been restoring race cars for, you know, a while now. Is there one that stands out as your favorite car you've restored, and then your current projects?
Right. Yeah, Toby's car. Right. Let's see. Haven't ever actually been able to restore that one quite yet. And it will be a championship car by the time we're done. So, let's see. My favorite one is probably my current one, because it was the car that we won with here 30 years ago. And so it was one of the very first cars I ever worked on at Penske, and it's, yeah, so I guess that's it.